Hello and welcome back to the channel. So few thoughts on photography. You're about to watch what is my typical setup for any important shots that I have to make when I use the digital SLR. So this is all about this digital SLR, this sort of segment, if you like. If you're not interested in that, then you're probably not any point watching. Although the principles do carry over into almost every area, but I started thinking about it, and after speaking with a few people and viewing people's general opinion towards photography, I think maybe photography is becoming a dying art. So many people now have got these, and basically they just stick it on auto. You can put it on auto, and it will do everything for you. And you could even just point and click, and you'll get a reasonable picture. But there's so much more to photography than that, and people go out, they buy a digital SLR, they put it on auto, they take some what they feel are really good photos, and they show them around, and all their family members are telling them they're great. The next thing you know, friends asking them to do a wedding, and within weeks they're suddenly professional photographers. It's a very in-depth technological sort of subject. There's so many things that you can do with a camera, and there's so many things that you've got to get right to take a picture. It's these things that elevate your picture from standard picture to the greater ones that you see in magazines like National Geographic, and they're at the peak of their career, and that is photography, and that's what as amateurs we aspire to be. But then the phones have come along, and people have jumped on them, and you can just snap a picture, and you just snap a picture, and it sort of makes this redundant. But it's just such a shame that that's how it is now. Let me think. I've got to think. So yeah, photography is a dying art, I think. It's just dying out. Professional photographers, it's an extremely difficult business to get into, and you've got to be really on your ball. And with the introduction of the sort of bridge cameras and the telephones, the cell phones with the cameras on, it just sort of makes it harder and harder to make a living at. I don't do it anymore for a living as such, because it's I just can't do it now with the health concerns the way they are. So anyway, that's my bit on what where I think photography is going. It's probably it's irrelevant to modelling, but I just thought I'd say my little piece on that. Just the way I think it is, sadly, but there we go. Anyway, so as I said, you're gonna see a video in a minute. It's gonna be a walk around about what I do with my most important shots. But first of all, I thought we'd just have a brief look round the digital SLR as it is, and go through any sort of main points on it. This is not meant to be a comprehensive lesson on how to take photography, how to, there's just far too much for me to go into. So we'll start. This is a Canon. There's several makes, Canon and Nikon being the top sort of leaders of the field, as it were. This one has a swivel screen on, and it was bought primarily for this because I recently lost my leg when I bought this, and I needed to get down to do low shots because at the time I was going to try and carry on photography, and it's got the ability to tilt and sort of swivel, and it's a good bit of kit. So it's very few of the digital SLRs have these on. Some bridge cameras do, and some, I don't know whether many compacts do, but there we go. So you've got your screen on the back, so I'm going to swivel that around so when we turn it on we can actually see any information we need to see. We've got the off-on switch, which will vary from machine to machine. Canon, it's normally on the top here somewhere. And then you've got what is called your command dial. Your command dial is this, and this has all your main settings on. So we'll go through them very quickly. Obviously, the little movie camera there means movies. So this is a fully functioning videographer, or whatever they're called, camcorder as such. It's quite a good one. We'll have just to go into the settings quickly and see what we've got on this one. So we've got movie exposure, AF mode, highlights. So movie recording size. This can do up to 1920 by 1080 at 25 frames a second. If you want 50 frames, it can do 1280 by 720. You can do 1920 by 1080 at 24 frames, and then we can go all the way down to do really tiny sort of thumbnail stuff, which is quite, it's quite a good camera. It really is. So we'll set it at the top end. I normally have it. I think I normally have it on that one. So then we've got our white balances, picture styles, quality, and these menus change depending on what mode you're in. So I'm just skipping auto power, format, battery info, and stuff like that. So that's your camcorder mode. Then there is a nighttime mode, and then we've got some of the sort of scene modes. This is obviously for sports or faster photography. The flower is always macro. This will translate to all cameras, will represent macro by this symbol here. We got a turn it off a sec. There we go. You'll see that flower by where the dot is. And then the next one is landscape, obviously represented by a mountain. And they normally, again, all these symbols are normally the same throughout all the different cameras. I'm just trying to see, is that worse or better with the light on or off on there? Actually, it's a bit blurry. Let me just try. Sometimes the light does more harm than good. It might be that it's so anyway. And then we've got the portrait mode, which is represented by a lady's head. So you would use that if you were taking photos of kids or children or your wife or something like that. I'm going to embarrass myself now. I can't remember what CA is. Come back to that. The lightning strike with the line through just means no flash. The green box is automatic, full auto. On most cameras, well, all cameras have got a full auto mode, normally represented on the command dial by a green coloured icon, which may vary. Now then, the other thing that all cameras will have that have got any degree of sort of control about them will be these MATPs that you'll see, or MASP, and basically they are going through them. So the first one is program. It's a single P, and this basically gives you a bit more control than auto. The camera will control all the sort of focus and aperture, but you can there's certain other settings that you can have access to that you don't normally get access to in full auto. So it gives you a little bit more control. The next one is normally represented by an S or a T if it's Canon, and although it's represented by a T, it's actually shutter priority. Now basically what this means is you can set the shutter speed to whatever you want. So you could set it to say 1/60th of a second, and the camera will automatically choose the correct aperture for your shutter speed. If it flashes in any way or goes red, then it normally means that it's out of range, i.e. there's not enough light, or it just can't do it. There's not enough range in the camera for it to take the picture at those settings, at which point you can either change your shutter speed. Normally you would go lower, or you increase your ISO if that needs increasing. These are just some of the things you can do to try and make that possible. So after that, the next one you've got is aperture priority, and on this Canon it's AV. It may be AP on a Nikon or just a single A, but they're the sort of little variations, and that's the same as shutter priority, only the other way around. So now, I don't know if you can see on this top plate, we can change our shutter priority, our shutter speed, which is here, 6.78. Let me see if I can bring the screen up. So here we go. I don't know if that's a better... let me see if we've got a better view on that. Come on. Oh, that's dreadful. So you can just see the top there. We've got the F11, F13, F16, F19, and so you set it where you want it. So let's say we set it on F8, and then that will change the shutter speed to the right one, whichever's required. And again, it will flash if there's something wrong or it can't do it. And then you can adjust your shutter speed to increase. So if you go higher, the rule of thumb, one of the ways to tell what you're doing is if you go higher in numbers, you're closing your aperture. So the higher the number, the smaller the aperture. The smaller the number, the bigger the aperture. So that's why fast lenses, sort of 1.8, they have wide open apertures. They let in much more light, so therefore you can get down to a much you can take photographs in much lower light. which is what phones do so well. They normally have a fast aperture on them, and that's why they manage to take photos so well in low light. Then we've got full manual control, which is absolutely everything is manual. There's nothing that isn't. Why it doesn't want to? It doesn't want to focus in on that at all. Maybe it's too bright on the. There is a. Let me just. Where's the brightness gone? LCD brightness. There we go. Let's turn that down a bit. See if that's helped. Right, so let's turn that back. So yeah, so that's manual. It's fully controlled. You control everything: auto, white balance, focus, everything like that. So then we sort of move on and we come to B, which you'll get on most cameras, stands for bulb. And basically this means your shutter will open and it won't close until you tell it to. So you just, the mirror will come up and it will just stay until you tell it to shut. And in many cases you'll press it once and it'll open, and then you'll have to press it again for it to shut. And then we've got custom at the end there, which is your sort of custom settings. Then moving around the camera, we've got the dustbin, which basically is sort of just for deleting rubbish and that. This here is for recording and also for setting up shots if you don't want to use the viewfinder. So you can you basically just, with that on, you just press that button, the screen becomes active. It's shining down on there now, so we can do all our sort of adjustments like that on screen. I'm not sure whether this one we can even, is it this one? Yeah, we can zoom in briefly, and this might apply to Tim. Was asking about manual assist, focus assist. This is a version of that. So we've literally temporarily zoomed in by 5 times 5. So we're having a closer look. If I press the plus button again, where my thumb is here, it will zoom in times 10, so we get an even greater sort of look up. We're looking at the paintbrushes now, and we can just focus in so that it's pin sharp when we take our picture. I'm not going to take the picture because nothing's set up and it just won't come out very good. So that's I forget where we got to now. That's the command dial. Then yeah, we've done that, and then when we've finished we just turn it back off. Menus, obviously it just takes you through your menus. Info normally gives you information regarding whatever picture you've took or you're about to take. The Q on this one, again, it's just a variation, and all these are programmable. You can change what they do in relation to certain features and that. I'm not going to go into the autofocus and back button focusing, which is something a lot of professionals use. This is just more to help familiarize yourself with the camera. The top dial there gives you more or less the same information the back screen's giving you and the same information you're seeing through the viewfinder. A lot of people prefer to look at this than they do through the viewfinder. And then you've got a set of dials at the top here. The AF there is autofocus, and if you press that it will go from, it's in manual focus at the moment. If you can see, is it, I don't know whether it's, so if I press this button it will go from, and then move this dial, A1 servo, A1 focus, one shot, and so there are your various focusing modes. The next button is drive, and that just changes through your single photo, so it'll only take one. The symbol with the number under it is self timer. They're normally sort of 10, 8, 20 seconds you can set them. ISO is an important one to remember. This one adjusts your ISO up and down. Rule of thumb, the lower the number the better quality the picture, but also the lower the number, the lower the shutter speed as well. So that's an unfortunate trade-off. You've got to, if you boost that, your quality will go down, but it will allow you to take more pictures in lower light. And then we've got the focusing on the end there, which is spot metering, center weighted metering. So that's that. I really don't want to go too much into this. This, like I say, this is just to familiarise yourself with it. Now, one of the things I will say, at the moment we've got a standard lens on here. This is just a standard 18 to 55mm lens. So this one, the motor's gone in it so that it doesn't autofocus, it's manual only. So when we try to take a picture, let's see if we can do this on camera. So we try and take this picture of this. Please don't judge this picture, I'm literally just going to put it on. Let's go full auto. We'll ignore the flash, ignore the picture, this is just a demonstration of something. So let's put it on manual. So you can see the boat there, the canoe, and we put it into focus. There we go, we've got it into focus nice and sharp. So we can take a picture of that. Cancel the drive, sorry. Right, so we're nicely in focus there. Take the shot, and there we've got our picture. Now then, this came up yesterday. We want to do a close-up. We want to see every little scratch on there. So we come in like this, and the first thing we naturally want to do is zoom in and come in real close. Well, you'll notice, the first thing you'll notice is the camera won't lock in because it's out of focusing range. It will just sit there going backwards and forwards, and you know, you won't get anywhere. So you decide, I'll come back a bit. So you come back a bit and then you zoom in as much as you can. But to get the picture you want, you need to go in close. But again, it won't allow it. So the closest you can get is sort of like that there. This is the closest you can realistically get with a lens like this. If you can see that, so which is not great, especially when we want to do close-up photos. So that's when you normally have to invest in some new glass, or a new lens, and you want to look for a prime lens, a dedicated macro lens, which is what this is. It's a 50mm macro. Don't be fooled by the big lenses that say they've got macro feature built in. They all say that. Right, there we go, lined up. So now this one really can do macro. Now we're going to come in, we're going to take it from the side, and the only thing that's going to get in our way at the moment is the shadow of the camera, the lighting. Nothing's been set up for this. I'm only doing a demonstration. I can't stress that enough, that this is just so now with this lens on, we're completely different. We can now come in and I can just take a close-up picture of that rope there. So let me see that. You can see that. So basically we've took a picture of this rope here on that edge there that runs along, and with this cat lens we can get in very close and we can do that. So these are essential if you want to be taking close-up photographs like that. The money is well worth it, in my opinion. You can't beat it. So there we go. That's a quick look round as quick as I could make it. A quick look round the Canon. This one is the EOS 60D. I think when I bought it, I paid, it's about £1,000 when I bought it. But the camera market is very, it moves about a lot. So cameras come out and they lose their value quite quickly, and it's one of the things that photographers have to move with. So when the latest technology comes out, you have to go and buy it, and you have to keep up with it, and it's a very, very expensive business in terms of, people wonder why photographers charge so much, but they've got to keep up to date with the emerging technology. Thankfully now it's not so much a pixel race anymore, whereas before every camera that came out was an extra few hundred pixels better, and it got a bit silly at one point. So there you have it. I'm going to leave you with the video to watch. It'll take you around my typical setup. I hope this has been of some help to you. Any questions or anything like that, feel free to ask, and hope you enjoyed it. Bye for now. Hello, I've got 5 minutes on the clock, so here we go. This is my typical setup for when I want to take any pictures that I feel are important in some way. So we've got just a standard day lamp here. It's not one of the flash head or anything like that, just the day lamp plugged in. It's very bright enough for what I want to do here. And then I've got the digital SLR, which bear with me a sec, which I've got set up here with an off-camera, well, it's on-camera flash, but it's not the onboard flash, as you can see. That's all set on ETTL, which is through the lens. It's all synced up. You'll notice that I've got the camera set at about, what are we saying there, 50 to 45 degrees. And I've got the equivalent of a stofen on the front, which just diffuses the harsh light that a flash will push out. So I'm literally bouncing the light off of the ceiling in the light tent and sort of back down and onto the model. It's, by the time it reaches the model, it's all diffused and nowhere near as harsh, and it'll help bring out the colours. The light tent is quite large you can get away with a much smaller one. This is a black material inside, but it's a very dull. You probably notice there's no shine to it. Very matte finish on it. So it's perfect for this sort of thing. Obviously underneath you can have white if you just have the material, but the problem is with that it sort of shows the wrinkles, so I tend to stick with the black for now. The lens on the camera, just a quick mention, is a sort of prime lens, so it's a 50mm lens, which is considered probably the standard portrait lens, or once was, but once you convert it, it's probably more like a 75mm or 70mm in that region. I don't know what the conversion is on the C APS size. So yeah, it's a fast lens. It's got a aperture 2.8 it can go down to, which is quite fast. Not the fastest, there are a lot of fast ones out there, a lot more expensive. I can't remember, I think that one was a couple of £100, this Sigma one. It's a very good lens and it takes very good pictures, and it's specifically designed for macro, so I can get very close and it'll take pictures pin sharp. As goes the setting on the camera, I will normally work in well, I've got it in aperture priority at the moment, and that's because I wanted to control how deep the depth of field and everything was. Early on in the shoot, when I do close-up shots and I'm doing the details on the model, I will put the aperture at 2.8 and adjust accordingly where possible. So you know, as long as the shutter speed doesn't drop below 1/60th of a second, I can get away with hand holding. Anything below that and you're entering a bit iffy territory if you want to get something sharp. You can increase your ISO. I wouldn't go much further than 800. And that's about it. Really. I mean, it's just really just a quick look round how I've got everything set up. It's not meant to be a video that shows you how to do everything, because that's not going to be possible in the 5 minutes that the camera is allowing me. So with that said, we'll leave it at that, and bye for now.